Has the Steam Strategy Festival sale left your wallet feeling a little bit bare? Well, don't fear, there's plenty of opportunity to try the weird, wonderful world of demos during the next fest, and in this video we're going to do just that. Starting with Hexarchy. A Hexarchy is a fast-paced 4X strategy game that merges what you know and love about a 4X game, like the hexagonal tiles, the units, the cities, etc., with a roguelike card game. You draw a hand of cards each turn and play them according to their cost. Ones that you don't play are discarded, eventually being added back into your deck, so there's still a progression mechanic here, by, for example, playing cards that are technologies. You also, of course, march around the world just like you would in a game like Civ, and the goal here is to try and produce victory points through a variety of means. You can also trade with other players and cities for resources, add them onto your cities manually, or allow sort of a more automatic distribution. What I really like about Hexarchy is that it does a lot in a short amount of time. If you put it on the shortest game speed possible, you can smash through a game in probably less than half an hour. And at its max, it tends to be about 60 minutes for a game of Hexarchy. Because of the sort of random roguelike element as to what you draw, the order that you get it, will it be lots of units and buffs? Will it be technologies or tile upgrades like farms or things that you might use to harvest luxury resources? It means that each playthrough, as well as being fast-paced, is also just providing something a little bit different. Obviously the strength of a roguelike game. And when you combine that with the DECK building, I forgot to censor myself earlier, and the kind of combat civilization building that you might expect from a more grand sort of more detailed game like Civilization 6, for example, and bundle it all into a quick package like this, I think it's a no-brainer. Hexarchy's demo is available during the Steam Next Fest, and they've just announced that the game will be releasing in full around the 19th of October. So, not long to wait, as I say, and why not try it out now? It seems like a no-brainer to me, but let's move through to another recommendation, Microcivilization, and this one probably falls a little bit more into the weird category. I started it up, saw a relatively simple tech tree, and I was then prompted to click, and I'm thinking, oh geez, this is a cookie clicker, isn't it? As I scroll through a bit, I see there's maybe a little bit more depth to it. As I move through the game quite significantly, I also start to realize that there's sort of a world map, and inside of this world map, it's presenting these sort of multi-layered, multi-staged quests for me to go on. And the quests themselves, along with my incessant clicking, also carry a risk level. And if that risk level is triggered, which is very easy to do, you'll then fall into crisis, like this level 6 fire or potentially barbarians. Going on in the background, because much of it will eventually be automated, is a civic setup as well, where you get rewards from quests and sort of place them in. If you get a technology fast enough or something along those lines, you can also get special rewards as you move through. The game itself ultimately turned out to be much more than just a simple cookie clicker. I actually became a little bit hooked to that cookie clicker style of progression while balancing what to produce, like defenses, for example, here with my spearmen, or defensive buildings, against growth and the free space and resources that are needed to get it. This might not necessarily be a game you spend hours and hours with, but I enjoyed my little amount of time with it nonetheless. Third item on our list is Tempest Rising, and this one has much more, or at least much closer to, a AAA feel. Not just through its cinematics and its cutscenes, but the sound design too, and other elements of this game that actually really impressed me. It stands out among many others, which tend to be sort of more 2D, more sort of an indie feel to them, not to take away from them, but this is a more serious game. And as you can see by jumping into the actual gameplay itself, this game should fulfill the desires of those of you who are really looking for some real-time strategy. In what has been a festival where some real-time strategy games, like for example the Total War franchise, have largely been excluded by choice. Now, as you move through Tempest Rising, you'll be managing different unit types and working towards these objectives that reveal themselves through the fog of war. Again, the in-game narration and storytelling plays a strong role here. There are a lot of cutscenes. If you're impatient like me, at least at the beginning, you might find that there are almost too many. The game's demo itself is relatively more constrained than, say, Hexarchy's, which is wide-reaching. You'll get to experience a lot of the game. Inside of this, we can only play around with the campaign, though you can play as two different factions, two vying factions, so there's at least a little bit of replayability inside of this demo, but not a lot of other options for game modes or anything like that, so we'll have to wait and see. The release date for this game, by the way, is currently just listed as coming soon on Steam. So it's not going to be a quick arrival like Microcivilization in Q4 of this year or Hexarchy. The next item on my list, Super Fantasy Kingdom, has a very different feel to it from our previous entry. Inside of this game, you manage a kingdom, as you can see. There are different buildings, building slots, and resources that you'll need to gather as you move through the game and progress, starting of course with lumber, and you'll assign workers here too, to make sure that you're gathering everything you want. In the north, however, things are a bit more dangerous. Here there are enemies who will start fighting you from lunchtime and really pick up the pace in the evening. Each day, you might also encounter something a little bit interesting. On the second day, for example, spoiler alert, you'll get an extra military unit, and you assign these, obviously, to defend your kingdom. They, of course, have different abilities, effects, and attacks. As you expand and build roads, you'll also encounter more of the story. Things might need to be repaired. You might encounter new military units that you can train. And you'll continue to use stone and your sort of the currency of your prestige, if you will, to keep expanding out these roads, both within the town and outside of it. Take care at nighttime as the zombies really up their aggression, and at the end of each day, you'll return to make the most of your kingdom by eating the food, better food giving you better rewards, and resting for the evening to gear up for the next day. Super Fantasy Kingdom had a real addictive feel to it, a real-time strategy that I very much enjoyed. Next is Infection Free Zone, starting off in a world map, maybe not quite as high resolution as Google Maps, but I like the fact that they've let you use real locations because a mad virus is spreading. And no, it's not 2020, my friends. This is a zombie apocalypse kind of setting. And inside of it, inside of the city that you've selected, you'll begin to convert buildings that you've cleared, adapting these shelters into more permanent fixtures, like warehouses to store resources. You might also lean into the game's sort of more broader city building mechanics to start producing your own resources, like farms, for example. We'll look at those later, but also, of course, there are zombies around. At nighttime, it's very dangerous, and you might want to shelter down and hunker in place with your squads that you manually control as you move them around this map, sending them off to do missions, to search buildings, or, of course, attack and defend. You'll also command a merry band of workers to gather resources around you like wood or metals, or, as I mentioned earlier, start work on some of the things that you're constructing or converting yourself. It's in this sense that Infection Free Zone does a great job at merging a post-apocalyptic base building or city building experience inside of a real-time strategy, where those sort of tower defense-esque elements of combat start to play out too. Because of course, the zombie infection is wild and dangerous. You can command your squads and interact with missions using the push-to-talk radio down the bottom right. The overlays and UIs are all fairly easy to use, if not particularly glamorous. And, of course, the danger is very real. Take care. Things will step up relatively quickly as you go out into that very dangerous world. It was a highly enjoyable demo and the most popular one. And then finally, we have Cross Blitz. Cross Blitz was a game I wasn't sure if I was going to play or not, and I'm really glad that I did. It's an RPG card game really at its core, with some sort of roguelike elements, of course, or DECK building elements as you move through. In terms of an actual game or a turn, you play cards according to your mana, they play cards, and then both players enter a combat phase, where lane by lane, minions that are ready to attack each other. You can stack 2 per lane, and of course as you move through the world, mission by mission, you choose to a certain extent the branching path that you take. You'll be able to pick up extra cards for your DECK and vital synergies within them. There are sort of different leaders, different parties. If, for example, you could take these cute mushroom people here, or pirates instead, as you step through layer by layer. I found the card game mechanics themselves to be fairly straightforward once you get past the combo thing. Mana ticks up 1 per turn, play the minions. If they don't have rush, they can't attack until a turn afterwards. But once I started getting into the combos, the wombo combos, and figuring out some strategy, I found it was a really enjoyable card game. Thank you so much for joining me. There are of course plenty of other demos available on offer. Let me know below if there's a particular gem that you think I've missed and want to share it with the commenters, and I'll see you next time.